I love the expanding on the genre topic too, because one of the things I was going to ask was related to punk rock. If you were like a hardcore punk person, or like pop punk in general,
Hmm.
or skate punk, whatever. But
Yeah.
actually, I think you kind of, you're like me across the board. I mean, maybe you do kind of stick with the AFI style or something. Um,
Yeah.
but but expanding in genres, I still want the answer to that question. But the expanding of genres, I think, is the most important thing that we can do for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I heard a few bands, I was like, man, I will not ever listen to that again, and I wrote it off.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, it comes back around the cycle, and next thing you know, the record's sitting in front of me, and I've put it on, and all of a sudden I'm just consumed with that motion, that
Hmm.
emotion of, oh my gosh, I didn't get it then because it just didn't come at the right time, and
Yep.
now it's my new favorite record.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
it's just kind of like how you can be acquaintances with a person for years,
Hmm.
and then one day something happens and they're your best friend ever, or you fall in
Yeah.
love with them, or whatever the case may be. You're just like, oh,
Hmm.
you know, now's the time.
Yep.
Um, I will say, I mean, yeah, I really do love all kinds of music. I obviously focus on, my favorites, which are, the broader genre of punk. But I think the things that resonate the most with me within the punk genre are um, two. There's two. I love, so I grew up a skater kid. So like Pennywise
Yeah.
and No Effects and anything with that, um, the forbidden beat, like Bad
Yep. Yeah.
Religions
Gotcha. Yeah.
coined it. I just love that. Just the,
Yeah.
um, but I think the just pinnacle of my favorite thing in the world is like 3/4 chord Ramones core pop punk. The
Gotcha.
Queers, Screeching Weasel, Ramones. So I learned how to play guitar 22 years ago by listening to the Ramones, like so many people. And then more recently, I picked up, well, a few years later, learned how to play bass just by, how to play guitar, the basics. You might give me, we're on the same page here, Bobby. But, you
Yeah.
can play the root notes and get away with it, and then you start getting more creative, right? Um,
Right.
so I learned how to play guitar from the Ramones, learned how to play bass from the Ramones, I learned how to play drums from the Ramones, and I just got a piano last year because I got bored. Started learning piano by playing
Yeah.
like ballad versions, real slow, of like, um, Here Today Gone Tomorrow, Today Your Love,
Yeah.
all that stuff,
Hmm.
Needles and Pens. So I think the Ramones are like my all-time pinnacle of favorite band because they could do no wrong. Even albums like Animal Boy that get so much hate. My God, if you spin Animal Boy and listen to it, like there's some really awesome like 80s hardcore classics in there. And
Yeah.
then I think Animal Boy is the album that has crummy stuff on it, which if you've heard that is a terrible song, but it's awesome. You know,
Yeah.
I sing it to sing it to myself to sleep sometimes. I had a shitty day. I'm like crummy, 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 crummy,
Yeah.
crummy
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that like my favorite thing in the world is when there's like heavy fuzz, just gets you thick bass, and all the musicians are just tight, and they're only
Yeah.
playing 3/4 chords. You don't need any more than that
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
write an
Keep it
excellent pop
simple.
song. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some people kind of get
The Kiss
offended.
theory. Keep
Yeah,
it simple.
uh, some people I think get a little offended when you
Hmm.
call Ramones and Ramones core stuff like pop punk, but I'm like, no. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard Joey Ramone talk about anything ever? He was
Man.
a he just loved bubblegum pop. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Needles and Pins, for example.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
why else would they cover that song
yeah,
and do it so
exactly.
well?
Hmm.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if
man.
you've
That's
ever
a,
seen the movie Rock and Roll High School, like he's just, I feel like Joey may have felt displaced in his punk band. Like Joey was obviously a
Yeah.
punk,
Yeah.
uh, but I feel like he would have been just as happy, maybe even happier. Like well, when they started recording End of the Century with Ed Stasium, you know, crazy dude. But that when they started going into that before it went south, um, that must have just been the highlight of Joey's life. You know,
Yeah.
he was just
Yeah.
like, "We're gonna
Yeah.
make the best pop record ever," and
Yeah.
they wound up making a freaking awesome record. But like the drums are a
Yeah.
little too big and it's a little too
Yeah.
atmospheric. But anyway, I could talk about the Ramones all day.
I always thought it was interesting that of what we genre, what we call the genre of punk rock. Obviously, you talk to anybody, and the Ramones, like, yeah, that's obviously punk rock, you know. But the pop sense of what the Ramones are, it always surprised me that all of the local radio stations. I don't know about other cities, but I just know about the ones I grew up. Did you grow up here in Tennessee?
Yeah,
Or
right here
okay,
in town. Yep.
so yeah, never have I turned on the radio and been like, oh yeah, they're just playing the Ramones, which
Right.
would be so at home on any of the stations. You don't even have
Right.
to name one. It's like you could just take a record, throw the whole thing in your little, shuffle and let one play randomly, and it would fit so perfectly. I remember so perfectly that when I teamed up with my friend Mac for the Trink Radio thing,
Mm.
he was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to put you in charge of programming." And I was like, "Okay, man, I got a couple of ideas. I'm going to call them like alarm clock bands." And he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "Every morning at 7 o'clock, we're going to hear Black Sabbath. Every day at 1 p.m., we're going to hear Ramones, and every day later was 8 p.m. We're going to listen to Motorhead, or maybe it was Motorhead, then Sabbath, and then
Yeah.
Ramones. But basically, it's like the theme was not just one song. You have this whole catalog from these great bands.
Uh-huh.
When you hear that on our station, you don't have to look at your watch anymore. You know it's 7 a.m. You know it's
Yeah.
8 a.m. You know it's 1 a.m. Or at least it's within a 5 minute range of that.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, try it, man." But the Ramones was the first one that I plugged in. It's like every day at 1 p.m. it's Ramones, man, because it's so simple. It's
Yeah.
like you get 2 or 3 minute pop songs, and there's not a bad choice. You just
Mm-mm.
dump the whole Ramones catalog into our thing, and I just every day I would drag one in and make sure that I had them loaded, and it was so fun, man. And I would listen to the station, and I don't know, man. Sabbath was the same way. You mentioned learning how to play with the Ramones.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to play with Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So I would come home from school. It was junior high, maybe elementary school at the time, actually. Um, get off of the school bus, walk into my house. My parents weren't home yet. I would put on Master of Reality and I would play the drums. So I was 10 years old. That's when I got my first drum set, was 10.
Mm-hmm.
Play through the entire Master of Reality as loud as I could on that stereo with it right by the drum stool. It's like, okay, I got to
Right.
get through it. Yeah, great.
Yep.
After it's over, take that boombox, just turn the tape from side A to side B, play through side B back to side A, and press play. And now I'm running through it on the bass. Okay, now I'm
Yeah.
Geezer Butler. Great.
Yeah.
Play
Yeah.
through the whole thing, side B, and then flip it back to side A. Okay, guitar time. Tony Iommi, play through the whole thing. I mean, literally do it 3 times as
Mm-hmm.
much as possible.
Right.
And then, of course, some days they would be home before I had completed the circuit. Some days I got to do the whole thing, but either way, that would be the transition. So it's like drums, then bass, then guitar, and then eventually you have a band and you're like, okay, we're going to start writing songs. What do? You write what you know, which is everything I've ever written probably came off of Master of Reality. I just don't, it's like you
Yeah.
you cut your teeth on that, and as funny as it sounds, it's not true that you're ripping them off, but you do play what you hear and how you've
Oh
grown,
yeah.
and so that
Well, I mean
whole
it.
evolution into sludge was kind of natural for me because Doom and Sludge kind of picked up the Sabbath torch and ran with it, so
Mhm.
it was natural for me to evolve into that. And hearing, I would say sludge is probably the thing. Sludge and very ambient music are the two things that really resonate with me. So when I'm doing
Mhm.
Doom Charts album stuff, I hear a lot of great music. I hear a lot of great psychedelic music. There's a lot of great bands coming out right now. There really are, and they deserve a lot more attention. So I'm glad to be kind of part of that circuit of getting them talked about.
Mm.
But when I hear that sludge, the ripping bass, like kind of like what you're talking about, big drums, the air is, you can just tell the air's moving in those speakers, and then
Yeah.
somebody suddenly is screaming at you at the top of their lungs. Not necessarily like death metal. I'm not that much on death metal, but just like a real, like if I'm mad at you and I just start screaming, "Damn it, John, get in
Yeah.
line, do your homework."
Again, in front of
that,
everybody.
yeah, that's the thing that really resonates with me. It gives me that
Yeah.
kind of emotion, probably because I mean, I'm not really, I don't like violence or anything like that. But when it comes to music, I want it to be like that. But I don't want it to be fast. I want it to be, grooving. So sludge is really kind of where I find my home.
Yeah, that's awesome. I freaking love it. It's so funny to see how, even though my musical tastes are pretty much the exact same, you know what I mean, for the entire course of my life up until this point. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? But it's pretty consistent, even within that sort of flat line of change. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I've always loved metal and everything, but now, like, oh, this really slow stuff. Maybe it's because my body and mind are slowing down in my old age of mid 30s.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what it is. Um,
you'll be on an acoustic guitar before you know
oh boy, I gotta send you some tracks. You know what I'm saying?
it.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so see, I'm so lazy and I'm so short for time. Like I know you must be as well. I know that man, I feel like I haven't played guitar in so long. But you know what I have played a whole lot of? The things I play most frequently are my piano because I can just it's on and now I'm playing. And that's newest to me too, so that also makes sense.
yeah,
But I'll pick up that acoustic guitar. I'll play, some Beatles fingerstyle stuff, and then do that for 6 minutes, put it down, and that's all I had time for. I
yeah,
feel like my electrics don't get nearly enough love.
yeah. Did I know we recently met? Was it last year or the year before when we
Yeah, it was last
first?
year.
So last year, okay. You might have missed the when I did the one riff a day on my Instagram page. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't think
Okay,
I
it
was
might
there for
have
that.
it might have had passed by the time I
Yeah.
did 420 days of
Mm,
one riff a day.
I do remember that. Yeah, I think I might have caught the tail end of that.
Okay, it was supposed to be like a 30-day challenge,
Hmm.
and it was just so fun because what had happened, kind of the same thing. You said the 6 minutes. It's like, man, I would get home. This guitar right here, it's
Yep.
just sitting there. It's not in a case. I paid $100 for it at a pawn shop. There's nothing special about that thing, but it has strings on it. So I would come home, I would grab it immediately, and I would just be like, blah, 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 blah. 2 or 3 minutes, I'd work out a riff. I'd break out the cell phone. I would hit record. I would play it. If it was under 60 seconds, I would try to perfect it. If it was over 60 seconds, I would try to condense it down to under 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I would record the riff. So that got to be like this fun cycle of life. I was coming home from work after all day, immediately grab the guitar, be like, I got to get it done. That way I don't forget. That was like the
Yeah.
thing. I don't want to forget the riff. Pick it up, write a new riff. Some days I'm feeling mellow. Some days I'm feeling punk rock. Some days I'm just sludgy, whatever. And I was having so much fun that I just kept doing it. I was like, I'm just going to see how far I can go. And it became this fun habit. And the only reason that I stopped on 420, which is such a funny number, I woke up one morning and I was like, I don't think I did the riff yesterday. It just suddenly slipped by. And I was like, oh no. And then I went and I looked and I was like, oh, I did. I missed a day. And I was like,
Oh no.
oh, son of a gun. I was like, so the cycle is broken. But I was like, how funny is it that that's how far it went? So,
That
and
is
I was kind of like,
awfully
you know
funny.
what? If I had to mess up, at least I messed up there. And
Perfect
it was
timing.
still, I'll never be able to hit that. Well, I mean, I probably could, but I'll never be able to, relive that kind of longevity with it without
Right.
probably repeating myself. And I did learn a lot. And just in a few minutes of everyday playing, I felt like I was so greasy and riff ready. It's just like, man, this is
Oof.
the way to go.
I got chills hearing that, man. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. One thing I despise is So like I have an iPhone, and it has the screen time that shows up once a week. And
Yeah.
that's the most depressing shit I've ever seen.
Mm,
Because okay, now granted, I do use my phone for work, for
yeah.
two jobs, a lot. So I'm going to give myself that grace and concession right up front before I even start going into this tirade. But those numbers, they be going up, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, I'm not even going to look. I don't want to know what the numbers are. I certainly don't want you to know what my numbers are, but
The embarrassment.
they're much higher than I care to admit. You know,
Yeah.
I know, like last night is a fantastic example of this. I brush my teeth and I'm like, it is bedtime, but I'm not quite wound down enough. Let me see what Reddit's up to, just real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just they probably just have a few things to tell me. Let me just see. It's just the internet.
Yeah. Just a few.
Uh, so I wound up stumbling upon this subreddit that was like it was called some all subreddits are called funny things, and
Yeah.
it was like it's called Sweaty Palms. First of all, terrified of heights. And almost all of these videos are people like jumping from building to building and just stupid shit. I don't know why people do this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm an extreme sports enthusiast, but I'm not about to jump from one building to another. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
about to do that. And all of these videos are like this. There's this one dude that had like, he was in the middle of some forest or desert or something. I realize those are two vastly different things, but it doesn't matter. He was somewhere where there was a snake that would kill him by looking at him the wrong way. And
Yeah.
it wound
Yeah.
up being, he basically sat on, you know what I mean? Like, so I think I spent like an hour and a half just doom scrolling. You
Yeah.
know, if I would have been taking even a third, a fourth, an eighth of that amount of time and just played a riff a day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, how riffy did you feel after 420 magical days?
Man, it felt good. Some days it came real easy. That's one of the things that was really magical about it. It's like you would pick up the guitar. Sometimes I'd be like, man, I just need a riff. It's
Yeah.
not working. And I would kind of get frustrated with myself. It's like, that's what I sounded like yesterday. I want to do something different, you know? And then all of a sudden it would just be like this thing that would happen. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And I would write the riff. And then the next day I would come in and it would be like the first thing I do is just like, let me just hit record on that.
Right.
And it was
Yes.
over. I mean, I didn't even play for 30 seconds before I had the riff. Played another minute and a half just to make sure I wasn't sloppy, and then another whatever the time length of recording, which is less than 60 seconds. And then I'm
Hmm.
hitting upload with riff number 500. Well, not 500, but riff number 50. And it was like, wow, man, that was so cool. And some days I'd be like, man, I'm not done yet. And I would just record like three or four more things
Yeah.
and just leave them on my phone. And they would never be a riff a day because I tried to record it on that day. But I just
Hmm.
felt so jazzed about writing that I would just keep recording. And I would have that riff and I would record and I would stop and I would do something else and I would record and I would stop. Finally, I told my wife, I was like, I have no more storage on my phone because what I'm doing is I'm saving all the riffs, because I'm excited about them. Not
Yeah.
the ones that I've posted on social media. Those are archived. I can watch
Yeah.
them anytime. It's the ones that I'm not posting that I'm trying to save. And so that turned into a whole different, thing. But yeah, man, just taking that time and applying it to something else. I realized at this point that time is the thing. We're all fighting time with. It's catching up with us one way or another. So we have to
Hmm.
choose it wisely and how we're going to do it. And my recent kind of getting into the YouTube video thing has been where I decided to go to use that time because over the past sequence of events of the years, I started packing more records, doing more stuff, doing more with the store, doing more with the band. And all of that's totally fine. No problems there. But there was a moment where I realized that like I was spending more time working after work than I was being creative. And
Yep.
that started to kind of bother me. Not that
Yep.
I was unhappy about the choice of, because it's always about playing music. You want to buy this record? Cool. Every week I do an online thing where I talk about music and show records. That's what I was doing before our chat today. It's fun. I love
Yeah.
doing that. I'm introducing people to music. That's why we're talking today, obviously. But the creativity was not lost in the process of talking about music. It's lost in the process of tomorrow when I get home from work. my only job is to pack records. There's no
Mm,
creativity in that. There's the fun part of I'm going to throw in some stickers and stuff like that, but there's
sure.
something inside that needed to be uh, dealt with, I guess.
Yeah.
So I just told everybody, I was like, guys, I gotta, ladies and gentlemen, gotta kind of slim off on this because I tried to do a magazine, and I done that for a few months, and I was like, this is
Hmm.
cool. I'm excited about that. I'm feeling creative. I'm writing more, and then the more I just started writing, I was like, man, this is only a piece of what I'm seeking out, and I'm really just seeking whatever the creativity needs to be purged. That's what the short of it
Hmm.
is. So I started doing YouTube. It's like it's going to take a little bit longer to do these videos, but man, I sure am feeling good about doing the editing, and I'm feeling good about reaching out to people, and like this, for example. I mean, it's like, hey, you want to do an interview? This isn't necessarily a art creative thing, but it is fulfilling something. I'm feeling good
That's right.
about us
Right here,
sharing this
buddy.
time together.
Right
Yeah,
here.
exactly. And so I just started doing all this goofy stuff because a lot of it was behind closed doors in this record group. And so now it's like, well, I'm just going to put it on YouTube, start doing Doom Charts videos, and, making fun of certain things in my record collection, and
Hmm.
listening to new stuff in the Doom Charts and sharing that, and, you know, unboxing videos, whatever. And I'm kind of thinking I might try to do the riff a day again, but I'm not sure just yet.
I was gonna
But I'm
say,
kind
man.
of thinking. So I
So
don't know,
that's a
man.
sneak peek
Anyway,
of what might be to come.
yeah. So the creative urge, just being able to do something different, which has become video and editing and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at now.